The tragic and senseless murder of Danielle Nemetz is a case that has left a community in shock, raising questions about the vulnerability of individuals and the darkest impulses that some are capable of hiding in plain sight. Danielle, a 27-year-old woman with a kind heart and a promising future, was ruthlessly taken from this world in a horrific act of violence. Her story is one of love lost, betrayal, and ultimately, ported. A painful reminder of how quickly lives can be torn apart by the actions of someone trusted. Danielle Nemetz was a young woman who seemed to have everything ahead of her. Ported. She had a successful career in the medical field, working as a nurse, and was known for her compassion, determination, and love for helping others. To those who knew her, ported, Danielle was the type of person who made the world a better place. She was deeply loved by her family and friends, and she had a great future that she was eager to build. But in 2025, that future came to a brutal and tragic halt. Ported. Danielle's murder would expose an unimaginable betrayal, one that would send ripples through the community and leave unanswered questions lingering in the minds of those who sought justice for her. The events leading up to Danielle's death began with an ordinary evening on March 15, 2025. Danielle had just finished her shift at the local hospital, a routine she was accustomed to. She was planning to meet up with a few friends for drinks, as she often did to unwind after her long hours of work. What should have been a night of relaxation and fun quickly turned into a nightmare. Danielle's friends never heard from her again. She didn't show up for their meet-up, and she didn't answer her phone. Her friends became immediately worried when they found out that Danielle had not returned home either. They called the police, and an investigation began. The search for Danielle quickly escalated from missing persons reports to a full-scale investigation. Local authorities were perplexed, ported, as Danielle had no known enemies and was not the type to disappear without a trace. Her life had seemed so full of promise, and yet there were no clues, no signs of foul play, ported, and no reason to suggest that something was amiss. It wasn't until several days later that investigators uncovered a shocking twist. Danielle's death was not the result of an accident, ported, but of cold-blooded murder. The breakthrough in the investigation came when Danielle's body was found, hidden away in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. It was clear from the moment investigators arrived that this was not a random act of violence. Someone had carefully planned and executed Danielle's murder. She had been brutally attacked, reported, and her body showed signs of extreme trauma. Her death was a calculated and premeditated act, carried out with chilling precision. But the questions surrounding her murder only deepened when investigators began looking into the people closest to her, especially her romantic partner. At first, Danielle's boyfriend, Eric Mitchell, appeared to be a grieving partner, devastated by the loss of his love. He expressed deep sorrow and was vocal about his pain and confusion. However, ported, as the investigation progressed, Eric's behavior began to raise red flags. He had been the last person to see Danielle alive, and investigators soon learned that he had been hiding details about his relationship with her. Eric had a history of controlling behavior, and it quickly became clear that Danielle had been trying to break free from his grasp. The more authorities dug into Eric's past, the more disturbing the revelations became. Ported. They discovered that Eric had been involved in several abusive relationships before Danielle's, all of which ended in allegations of emotional and physical abuse. Could it be that Danielle's desire to escape Eric's controlling grip had led to a tragic and fatal outcome? As police started to piece together the timeline of events leading up to Danielle's murder, they discovered something that sent shockwaves through the investigation. Eric had been stalking Danielle in the weeks prior to her death. Friends of Danielle came forward with accounts of Eric showing up uninvited at her work and at her home. They reported that he had been jealous and possessive, even though there was no concrete evidence to suggest that Danielle had been unfaithful or involved with anyone else. It was clear that Eric had grown increasingly obsessed with her, unable to let go of the relationship, even as Danielle expressed her desire for independence and space. This obsession would ultimately become the driving force behind the tragedy. In the days leading up to Danielle's death, Eric became more erratic, according to those who knew him best. He was described as being visibly agitated and frequently making threats against Danielle, saying things like, "If I can't have you, no one will." His behavior had turned toxic, but despite warnings from friends and family, Danielle was hesitant to break up with him entirely, fearing how he might react. It's a sad truth that many victims of domestic violence face. They often feel trapped by fear, unsure of how to leave a dangerous situation without it escalating into something worse. In Danielle's case, this fear proved to be the ultimate price, as Eric's control over her ultimately turned deadly. The night of March 15th was the tipping point. Eric had planned a final confrontation with Danielle. After an argument, ported, he lured her to the warehouse, a secluded spot where no one would hear her screams. Once there, he attacked her, using a combination of physical force and weapons to overpower her. The brutality of the attack was sickening, and it left Danielle with no chance of escape. Afterward, Eric tried to cover his tracks, ported, hiding Danielle's body in a secluded area and leaving no clear evidence that would immediately point to him. He even went so far as to feign ignorance, ported. playing the role of the devastated boyfriend who had no idea what had happened to Danielle. But as with many criminals, Eric's attempts to cover his tracks were futile, reported. Forensic evidence soon linked him to the crime scene, and witness testimonies confirmed that he had been seen near the warehouse on the night of the murder. The case against Eric Mitchell grew stronger by the day, and within weeks of the discovery of Danielle's body, he was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, reported. But the tragedy didn't end there. For Danielle's family and friends, the pain of losing her was compounded by the shocking betrayal of someone she had trusted and loved. Reported. Eric's motives were clear, his obsession had driven him to violence, and Danielle paid the ultimate price. The trial of Eric Mitchell captivated the public, reported, with many struggling to comprehend how someone so seemingly normal could commit such a heinous crime. Danielle's family gave powerful testimony, reported, speaking of the loving woman they had known and how she had been taken from them far too soon. In the end, reported, Eric was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Reported, his actions were a stark reminder of the dangers of toxic relationships and the devastating effects of jealousy, control, and obsession. Reported, Danielle's death has left an indelible mark on her community, and her story serves as a warning to others. Reported, it's a reminder that the signs of abusive relationships can sometimes be subtle, but that they should never be ignored. Reported, Danielle's bravery in trying to escape her abuser deserves to be remembered, and her story serves as a catalyst for conversations about domestic violence, the need for intervention, reported, and the importance of supporting victims before it's too late. Her murder is not just a story of tragedy, it's a call to action, reported. We can all do more to help those who may be in similar situations, to listen when someone says they are in danger, and to speak up when we notice the signs of abuse, reported. Danielle Nemetz's life was tragically cut short, but the lessons learned from her story should not be forgotten. Let's honor her memory by making sure no one else suffers the same fate.